Star 67 in just a moment. But first, new developments on the campaign trail. A King County Council race takes a nasty turn. Republicans, worried about their candidate's drunk driving arrest, are going on the offensive. Up front this week, Hague versus Pope. This one's heating up.
It can't be that bad.
Richard Pope readily admits he has had some trying times. Single dad, raising a daughter with severe autism.
My daughter is 4.5 years old, and she still hasn't spoken her first word. And it's very difficult to understand what she wants or to let her know what you want. That's the most difficult part of it.
Now, as a Democratic candidate for King County Council, he's under attack. Republicans sending out flyers and posting a website accusing him of mental illness and a history of instability.
Well, I think it's a very hateful and hurtful negative campaigning.
Is it really fair to accuse someone of mental illness?
He said it himself. We're not accusing him of anything. That's what he said in his own statements to the courts.
Republicans are attacking Pope's record as an attorney. In one case, Pope wrote a lengthy apology to a judge for missing deadlines, saying his marriage was falling apart, his daughter was just diagnosed with developmental problems, and he was caring for his terminally ill father. In Pope's own words, the stress was affecting his mental health.
Anybody's parent dying on them would, dealing with the stress of a divorce with a child with special needs. I think that has a big impact on people, and I was honest enough to admit it.
In another case, 11 years ago, a judge issued a restraining order after a woman accused Pope of cursing and threatening her in a deposition, lunging across a table.
I called her attorney a damn liar and got mad. I should not have done that. I apologized immediately for it. It was totally wrong for me to have done that, but those are the facts, and that's all there is to it.
Did you ever lunge at her or threaten her?
Absolutely not.
Pope is challenging Republican incumbent Jane Hague. Once considered a shoo-in for re-election, Hague has been plagued with her own problems.
I used abusive language, I was rude, and I embarrassed myself as a public official.
A recent arrest for drunk driving that Hague never revealed until confronted by the press. She's contesting the blood alcohol results, but did admit swearing at officers.
Which is more unforgivable, the charges that you're facing for drunk driving or the allegations facing Mr. Pope?
Well, first of all, let me say that they are allegations of a DUI. And as we discussed, I'm asking for my day in court, and I will accept the responsibility of the proceedings of a trial.
A tough choice for voters. Pope has made his share of enemies, filing countless disclosure complaints against politicians and organizations, against Democrats and Republicans. This year against 9 Port of Seattle candidates and Jane Hague. His complaint was upheld. Hague had to pay $8,000 in fines. Then again, Pope himself has had his own violations, and the Municipal League rates him not qualified.
All I can say is they're documented, and it would be up to Mr. Pope to accept responsibility for what he's done.
Can voters possibly feel good about either choice? Pope recently scored a victory, discovering Hague never graduated from college, despite approving biographies that said she did.
Have you ever represented yourself as having a college degree?
I accept responsibility for any of the issues that have been raised, and so I unfortunately have to move on to my other business, but thank you very much.
We've invited both Ms. Hague and Mr. Pope to debate on this show. We'll tell you what happened straight ahead. Also, it's the big insurance debate. You've seen the TV commercials. Now, the King 5 Ad Watch. What is Referendum 67, and who's behind it?
The issues that matter. You're watching King 5 News Up Front with Robert Mack.
Are you willing to debate Mr. Pope?
I think that the voters deserve to know where we stand on the issues, and I encourage you to work to get a debate on my schedule. Contact my campaign team, and they're the ones that are responsible for setting that up. Let's work on a format. I think Mr. Pope and I, going head-to-head, would be very clear where the voters should place their faith and trust for the next 4 years.
We've been negotiating with Hague's political consultant, but Jane Hague did not accept an invitation to appear today in our studio with Mr. Pope. We are joined now by Richard Pope. Mr. Pope, have you and Ms. Hague had any face-to-face debates at all?
Unfortunately not, Robert. We've had a number of forums on the east side for city council but they wanted to have county council candidates appear, me and Jane, but apparently she's not willing to accept their invitations. We've had radio shows, TV shows, where invitations have apparently been offered, and none of this has happened. I am willing to debate her in any forum that she's willing to appear in.
Now, Hague's political consultant says you've done some, in his words, creepy stuff, and he's not comfortable having Ms. Hague sit next to you. You know, our producers looked at your criminal record. It looks as if you were caught not wearing a seatbelt a few years ago. Is there something else in your history that we should know about?
No, I've never been convicted of any crimes. I've never been arrested for anything. I don't have any current criminal charges pending. I think Jane is trying to make any excuse she can not to face the public. If she can't blame her staff, she's going to place the blame somewhere else, but she just doesn't want to show up.
Over the years, you have filed dozens of complaints against public officials and organizations, and a number of times you have succeeded in having them fined for campaign violations. What's your motivation behind doing this?
I think public officials and candidates need to be accountable for their campaign finances. And when I've seen violations, whether they've been by Democrats or Republicans, I filed complaints. This year, one of my complaints resulted in a $40,000 fine against the King County Republicans back in May, and there was also a $9,500 fine against Jane Hague just last month.
Is it possible the reason that neither of the political parties support you is that you've alienated so many people? I mean, if you're elected, how will you work with other people on the council?
I'm going to stand up for the interests of my district. I don't think it's a matter of Democrats, Republicans, or independents. It's a matter of what's good for the people and what's right and morally correct. And that's what I'm going to stand for as your next county councilman. You
filed against Jane Hague before anyone knew about her drunk driving arrest. Very quickly, what's the #1 reason you ran against Jane Hague? Why should voters pick you?
I think our biggest concern on the east side is transportation. We need improvements. There's been nothing done for the last 20 years on the 520 bridge, which needs to be replaced. I also have issues about affordable housing and public safety.
Ms. Hague does support the RTID package. Hasn't she worked toward a new 520 bridge?
I think the RTID package could be much better. I'm supporting it, but relatively reluctantly, because it only provides half the funding that we need for the 520 bridge. We're still $1.3 billion short.
Richard Pope, Democratic candidate for King County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Let's move right along now to another issue on your ballot. It's the most expensive campaign this year. We've been bombarded by the TV commercials. So just who's behind Referendum 67? And what would it do?